which is very specified for IT managers and those people just in the IT industry. I'm certified for Agile project management. In fact, in today's presentation, I'll probably refer quite a bit to project management, both waterfalls and Agile. I founded my own company years ago after being with corporate America for a long time. I decided to go out on my own and been doing it now for about 8 or 9 years, I guess, something like that, and founder of my own company. I've worked for companies like Fidelity Investment. I was a senior project manager for those, for that company. Markham up here in Keene, New Hampshire, I was a sales training manager. Spent 10 years with Digital Equipment Corporation, 10 years with Wang Laboratories way back when, and also a little company, high-tech company in New England called NetScout. I was the global training director, running training all around the world for that corporation. So, enough about me. Now, what you think about yourself? Okay, this is a sort of a quick mental exercise. Think about the opportunities you have during the day to influence others. It could be as simple as a manager, you walk into your staff and you say, good morning, and what are we doing today? Okay, you have a chance to influence those people that work for you. When you walk into your manager's office, you have a chance to influence that manager. If you're on telephone support and the telephone rings, you have an opportunity to influence others. We don't realize how much influence we have on others and how much power we have on others. So in today's seminar, we're going to be talking a lot about that power that you have and how to turn it either positive or very negative. So you might think of their activity. You get up each morning, even as a parent. As a parent, you get up, you're getting your kids ready for school, you're making lunches, you're making breakfast, and you're getting the kids ready for school. You're influencing those kids. If you've got a really bad attitude and you've had a bad day, chances are those kids are going to pick up on it and may make their day a bad day. If you're positive and you're having a great attitude and a great day, the kids are going to pick up on that. So we have a chance every day to influence our children, to influence the people we work with and work for, work aside. So we have opportunities every day to influence others. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Okay. Now, there's a lot of barriers to influence. Now, you may think of, first of all, your company. It could be a cultural difference. That is, you may be working for a company that really doesn't appreciate the person that stands up and is the cheerleader. The person that says, Agile is the greatest thing in project management since sliced bread, and we should be doing that. The culture we may be working for may not really look positive on that. I did a lot of work recently with the Department of Defense, big, huge, corporation, and the culture they had wasn't one, at least the department I was working with, wasn't one of great, fast, phenomenal, out-of-the-box thinking ideas, and that was a cultural barrier to some influence there. General stagnation. You think about it, if you're doing the same job over and over, you've been doing that job for 5, 10 years, you may not, be as enthusiastic maybe as you could be. So you go to work every day, you do your job, and you do it well, but then, it's a barrier for you to jump up, okay? The perceived loss, okay? If I jump up, am I going to be looked at negative? If I'm going to be the, as I said, the nail that sticks up the highest, am the hammer going to hit me the hardest, okay? Political infighting. There's so many times, and I have to admit that I've been in this situation where I have a great idea or I'd like to influence others, but politically it's not looked on as positive. Maybe the manager looked on me and said, well, if you're going to come up with great ideas, you're after my job. Okay? Or I really don't want you to say right now, it's not strategically in the direction I want to go. It could be a lack of interest. Okay? You'll be giving an assignment, you really don't want this assignment, so you're not really influencing others because you're not excited about it. Okay? Disagreement on direction changes. This happens all the time. I got to tell you, over the years, I've had some great ideas, went to my manager, my director, my C-level, whatever reporting structure, and I said, I got this great idea. And they go, nah, it's not the direction I want to take. And even though I thought it was a great idea, maybe it was a great idea for the company, my manager didn't want to go that way. Poor communications. I would have to say out of all these things listed here, communications is probably the #1 barrier of influence. Strictly as I don't want to communicate with my manager well, or my manager didn't want to listen to my ideas. I tell in a lot of my management classes, one thing we really want to do is find out how people communicate. Now, think about it. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. I was trying to reach this one engineer one time, and email after email, telephone calls, left messages, nothing came back. Until finally one of my cube mates said, oh, by the way, he doesn't answer emails. He'll do IM, though. So sure enough, I sent him an IM, and bingo, got an answer right away. Taught me a very valuable lesson that not everyone communicates the way I communicate. So find out how they want to communicate, and that gets rid of one of these barriers. And a barrier might be you. Let's say you've been in the job for a long time, you're tired. Or you may be working for a company you don't particularly care about. Or maybe you're having problems at home and that work-life balance is not there. So you're not as enthusiastic. You don't influence people in a positive way because of it. Okay, now some key concepts here. Generally speaking, people aren't against you. They're for themselves. Now, if we think about it, there's something called WIFM. What's in it for me? That saying's been around forever. And when we go to work every day, usually the first person we want to take care of is ourselves. So we may have a great idea and we think it's great, we bring it up, and other people, shoot it down. Well, it's not that they're against you. They're just against the idea. So it's not you particular. And the reason I bring this up, because after a while, after you've come up with some great ideas and they keep being shot down, pretty soon your ego goes down. The want to get up and change things go down and be an agent of change. So a lot of stuff, this gets in the way when you get shot down constantly. Okay, now if you look at the source on this one, excuse me, Eric and I have to laugh about this one. Back in 1985, Eric ordered a cup of tea at a restaurant, and the tea bag came out, and it had this saying on the tea bag. So Eric uses it a lot in his, presentations. So it's something I've adapted to. And the art of politics is letting other people have things your way. And that always cracks me up, because I think some of the best politicians will get you very convinced that, your way is the right way. So the art of a politician is to get your way, but do it politically correct. Okay, now, I think that one of the first things you have to do is when you're influencing others is build trust. Now, trust is not something that's given. Just because you got a director's title or a C-level title or a manager's title, it doesn't automatically, people don't trust you. Okay, so you have to earn it. So over a period of time, you have to convince people you're a trustworthy person. You got their back. You're going to take care of them. Okay, and over a period of time, this builds up that influence. If someone trusts you, all of a sudden your word becomes gospel. You can follow it. You're going to influence people. Okay, now how do we gain trust? This is probably one of the hardest things I think as a manager or as a person you can do. First of all, you have to be ethical. Saying something consistently, standing up for others, making sure you have their back. Being respectful of others, being on time, being trustworthy, being honest. Think of all the managers you've had in your career, and think of those managers that are trustworthy. Probably not all of them were that way. You probably have managers that said, oh, they wanted to get their own way, they'll do anything to get up the corporate ladder, excuse me, and they're not trustworthy. You don't trust them to get your back. Other managers, and could be a very minority, you trusted them, you respect them, they had good ethics. It's the kind of person when they left the company, you may follow them. Okay? Reach out and develop a relationship. We have so many opportunities during the day to develop relationships. Could be as simple as someone calls a hotline and you answer the hotline. picking it up rather than say, what's your problem, let me fix it, and get them off as quick as possible. Hi, and I'm going to pick on Rocco for a second. I'm Rocco. A little bit about myself. We talk, we build a relationship. When we get around to fixing the problem, chances are we're going to work better together because we've taken that little opportunity to develop a relationship. And so many of us, because we're in IT, we work so hard and so fast, we never take that time to build that little relationship, which will build trust, which will build better working conditions. Okay, keep your promise early in the relationship. Always be truthful with your people you're managing or working with. Never lie to them. Tell them the truth. I teach transparency. It's part of my Agile training. And that is being open and honest with people, even when it's bad news. If a project's behind, let people know it's behind. Don't try to hide it. If the news is bad, rip the Band-Aid off quick. Let them know the news is bad. So you really want to keep this relationship healthy, and by doing so, building trust. Okay, now let's talk about maximizing your personal power. Now, everyone on the line today, Rocco tells me there's quite a few of them out there, so let's say it's a couple hundred. You have a personal power that you work with. It could be you're a very trustworthy person. You're an honest person. You're a friendly person. You're a very technically savvy person. Each one of us have different powers, and what we want to do is maximize those powers. Now, what can those powers be? Delegation of authority. A good manager knows when to delegate. Give you a prime example here. Let's say that I become a new manager, and I'm promoted from the ranks, and I was a good programmer. A project comes along, and I know I can take that project, I can do it in a very short period of time and do it well, better than anyone else, and get it out. But now I'm a manager. What I have to do is learn delegation. So I want to delegate the authority of that particular project or that particular task to someone else so they can do it, so they can learn, so they can grow. Good managers, and again, I'll pick sort of some of the manager side of it, will know when to delegate and what to delegate for the betterment of the team. Okay, leading by example. I have to laugh because I've had so many managers over the year that are more push managers. That is, they'll just tell you what to do. They'll walk in on Monday morning and say, Phil, you do this. Well, if I have any questions about how to do it, they don't know it. So there's no really leading there. All they're doing is dictating. Okay, so what I want to do is have someone that I have respect for. If they want to teach me soft skills of being a better presenter, hopefully they're an excellent presenter that I can learn from. Okay. Now, a thought leadership. Now, this may sound a little new agey, but the thing is, I want to take care of my group. I want to take care of my company. So every time I lead by example or taking a project or pushing out someone else, I want to make sure I thoroughly thought it out. Is the right person getting it? Should I do it? Is it the best thing for the company? Why are we doing it? So many times we do a project or we do a task and we're just doing it because we're told to do it. What we should be asking is, why am I doing this? How's it better the company? Okay. Having a good reputation and credibility. There are people on the line today that are great accountants. Okay? They're great accountants because they have a passion for what they do. So their reputation is you can go to this person about any type of financial questions and they can take care of you. Therefore, they have credibility. Okay? There are other people that work in finance that I wouldn't go to because they don't have that reputation to work with. Okay? Do they have good character? I've worked with some really shady people over the years that, frankly, wouldn't want to work with or for or around again because they were just out for themselves. Other people, they're out there, they have good character. That is, they're the kind of person I want to go out and have a drink with after work. They're the kind of person I want as my neighbor. They're the kind of person, if they get promoted, I want to work for. Okay? So they have good character. Now, each one of these guys, you think about your personal power. How can you increase your ability to influence others through any one of these? Now, let's take a look at some more here. Charisma. I had this one work person, and this goes back many years now, Wang Laboratories. He had such a charisma. He would walk into a room and not say a word, but just his presence, the way he walked in, the way he handled himself, the way he smiled, yeah, you just knew this was a leader. This is the kind of person you would follow. This person went on, this was again way years ago at Wang Laboratories, went on to run a big, major corporation. But he had the best charisma. And when he spoke, people listened. When he left the company, people followed him. Friends, allies, and enemies. Knowing who your friends are out there, knowing who your allies are. We work with sometimes hundreds of people a week, and knowing which one of those are my friends, which ones are the allies, and frankly, knowing which ones are enemies and why they're enemies. They may be against a project, or they just don't like you personally. So knowing, kind of knowing what people you're working with. Now, ego. Now, some people may look at ego as, well, their ego is way out of check, and it can be. But ego also can relate to confidence. I have to say that, I'm a pretty good agile project manager. It's something I'm very, competent at. I've done a lot of experience at. And, yeah, do I have an ego around that? Absolutely. I hopefully will keep it in check so it doesn't become obnoxious. But that ego also goes with strength. Now, body language. You may look at that and say, body language. Think of a person that is sitting across from you at a conference, or someone at a meeting. If their shoulders are rounded, if they're slumped forward, if their head is hung down, if their face is long and drawn, are you really, you look at that person, do I want to call on them? They look like they have a lot of problems. Or if you look at the person next to them, sitting up straight in the chair, shoulders back, chest out, pen in hand, looking straight eye-to-eye contact, that is a very positive body language. And really, body language communicates more to us than a spoken word by quite a few points. So think about your body language. You walk into a meeting, or just like this, you can probably imagine body language of your speaker, of someone working with you. Are they sitting up upright? Are they positive? Or are they slumped over? And I'm going to change my body, and the tone will change. If I lower, my body, round it, lower my shoulders, my tone changes. So you can get it just from a conference call. What are people's body language? Now, the knowledge they have and competency. Now, let's face it, all of us in this high-tech industry have some type of skill. Project manager, presenter. You could be a strategic director at the C-level. You could be a programmer, QA person. Each one of us have knowledge. Now, a lot of times the reason we're promoted is because our knowledge is better. We become a junior accountant, and then an accountant, and then a senior accountant, and then an account executive, whatever that might be. So what we want to do is people respect us because of our knowledge. And a lot of times that really starts our personal brand is, Rocco is a great person that coordinates all this training. I'd rather work with Rocco than anyone else because he does a fine job. That's his personal power. And once I have that established, I may look about his other skills. Well, Rocco also does great presenting, or Rocco knows a lot about this particular topic. So you really look at yourself as people are going to, especially in the high-tech industry, they're going to look at you for your skill set and your knowledge. Now, passion and conviction, it can come across in a language. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've taught classes that I wasn't passionate about. I was just, doing it. And I'm sure it came across in my language. When I talk about stuff like we have today, Agile project management, there's a passion in my voice. There's a passion in my body language that this really comes across. So when you walk into a meeting, if you're passionate about something, you don't have to be dramatic, but people will pick up on passion. If you're in there talking about funding for the IT department for next year, oh, well, we need $100,000. That's not going to do a lot of passion. But if you talk about, I need $100,000 and here's the why, it's for the betterment of the company, it's going to come across. And frankly, people get caught up in passion. When you're really, convinced about something, you have conviction about it, people pick up on it, okay? Now, showing you care. If you're a manager and one of your employees come into you and they say, and I'll pick on someone here, Fred. They say, Fred, I've got a problem. Well, if you're typing an email and answering the phone and, checking the scores for last night's games on your cell phone, and Fred is just talking, it doesn't show your care at all. But if you put the keyboard aside, you put the cell phone down, you put all the distractions away, and you look directly into Fred's face, and you say, Fred, can I help you? Man, you talk about personal power. Fred's going to say, yeah, even though my manager was busy, he stopped doing what he's doing, and he looked right at me. Okay, showing that you care is huge. I talked about kids earlier. Now, I have 3 children and 4 grandkids, and I'd like to think that as a parent, when they came to me, and not always, but most of the time, I stopped what I was doing and I paid particular attention just for their needs at that time. Okay, showing you care. Being the information gateway, especially if you're in a managerial position, one that has maybe knowledge. People are coming to you and saying, Alice, I just heard a rumor. Alice says, well, I heard the same rumor. I'll check it out for you. Or Alice says, no, it's untrue. We're not being bought out by IBM and all you guys will be millionaires. So it's something that we have to be, is that information gateway. Now, all of us have different styles of influencing people. And we'll talk about the 2 major ones in a few minutes here. Okay? And there really is a push system and a pulled system. Now, a push system. Okay? And you might even think of yourself, what is my management style or what is my influential style? A push system. Okay? When pushing or forcing someone to perform a task rather than motivate them, what they want to help. Okay? Now, you think about a push system. I walk in as a Monday morning as a project manager, and I look at my team and I say, okay, and I'll go around the table and assign tasks for that week. That's a push system. I'm not asking what they want to work on. I'm just assigning them work. Now, we all know managers that are push managers. People will come to us and said, Fred, you've got to do this. Now, we may not ask why or for the betterment of the company or how much is my budget. You have to have it done by Friday. Excuse me. And get that done. Now, the other influence style is a pulled system, okay? When you're attempting to motivate a person or a group and get them perform the task at hand. Now, this takes a little bit more time. Now, give me an example. I'll give you an example here. Let's say we go back to this project manager. I walk into my team on a Monday morning, and rather than push assignments out to each one, what I do is I say, here's 5 assignments that needs to be done this week. Let's talk about each one of them. And we explain each one, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, expectations. Then I look at my group and said, who wants to take item number 1? Now, if you think about this, I'm giving them the authority to choose what they want. Pull the technique or pull the assignment that they want to work on. If they're a database expert, they may say, oh, hey, there's one on database. I'll take that one, and I'll work on that one this week. So rather than me push it out to them, I pull. I allow them to pull the one they want. Now, if you think about it, as an individual, which would you rather be the recipient of? You want someone to tell you what to do or ask you what you'd like to do? Okay. Now, I think all of us, and hopefully I won't speak for all 200 of you, but most of us want to be on the receiving end of a pulled system, to ask what I want to work on, to ask my interest, to ask my career choices, to ask where I want to go. And I'm part of that decision-making process. Okay, now let's look at pushing a little bit. Okay, now there are different types of pushing. Some can be very positive, some can be very negative. Required rules. Now we go into a small Connecticut town, and the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. Now, that's the law. It's being pushed on me, so I can't go 70 miles an hour down the street. For some reason, they say 45 is a safe speed. That's pushed on me. Okay? Employees have got to wash their hands before leaving restrooms. Hopefully they will. That is something that's required. Okay? Could be a law. Okay? Now, experts. If I go to a doctor and I say, doctor, I want to lose some weight, and the doctor says, well, I'm an expert at this. I've lost weight myself. I've helped hundreds of people lose weight. You're probably going to listen to what they tell you. They're going to push a diet on you, and you're going to try to follow it. So you may not be part of that initially. It says, start with this one, because here's an expert. They've proven that their technique works. Okay. Now, the other one is forced. Okay. Let's say we're working on a project. And again, I'll use a lot of project management as my examples. We want to do a project and we're limited to $150,000. That's all the resources we have. We're doing a project and guess what? We have a limited number of people that on our team. Okay, so we're forced to work in those particular circumstances. Okay, if we lose a job, okay, then all of a sudden we're forced to go out and look for another job, or change our skill sets, or get a certificate, go back to school, whatever that might be. Okay, if a manager leaves a company and all of a sudden they supported us on, say, this going to transition to agile project management, they leave, we've lost our support. So a lot of times push systems aren't always just dictated to us. We do it by experts, or we're following the law, or compliancy is also a great example of a push system. Now, a pulled system. And again, this is something, if you think about it, we'd like to be on the receiving end. Okay? Collaboration. Now, there's nothing better in the world that's working with a team that works well together. They collaborate together. Whether it be a small team or a little bit larger team, people that are working together that are asked their opinions. We have a common goal or a vision. We follow that vision as a team. We all are marching in the same direction. Okay, the vision. So many times we do projects or tasks for IT department, and we don't know why we're doing them. We're just doing them because our manager told them to do it. But let's take it one step further. What if we were said, here's a task that we're going to work on, and here's why we're working on it. Here's the benefit of the company. To the company, we want to be new in this particular arena. We want to come out with a brand new cell phone better than Samsung or Apple has. Okay, so it's a vision. So you paint that, everyone knows this is where we're going. Okay, personal charisma. It might be someone that just you have so much respect for that when they come in and ask you to do something, and they may even use a little bit more of a push system, but just the way they say it, you kind of buy into it. Okay, and they may turn around and say, well, you want to be part of it. Now, how do we use this for your particular influence in others? Let's say that you have good charisma. Just your personality, you work well with others, you're a good team lead, you're a good project manager, you're a good IT manager. It's just that reputation and your personal charisma when you go to your director and say, I need another $150,000 to finish this project. The way you do it influences that person and they give you what you want. Okay. Now, facts and logic, describing a scenario, a situation, using facts and logic to get other people on board. Well, a person on our team left the team. They were a senior programmer. Therefore, we're going to have scope creep on the project, and we're going to miss a deadline. Flat out, that's just a fact. Okay? But the way you present it, the way you talk to people, you're going to say, I need another programmer for us to get back on track, or we need to move this out 30 days to meet the new team dynamics. Okay? Now, other positive styles, you can be emotional, and you can do it without being a big drama queen. You can be emotional and showing your passion. That here's why I need this extra person, And I'm sure being in IT, and hopefully most of you are maybe IT or IP related, we've always had this thing where we have to ask for more resources, whether they be money, time, people, whatever that might be. But the way we ask and the way we present might be a very positive way to influence others. You know, your claim of authority. If you're an IT director and you've been doing a fine job for this company for 10 years, you know, there is some real positive here. Okay, reciprocity. I always have a problem pronouncing that one. Bottom line is, it's sort of if I invite you to my cookout, then chances are you're going to invite me to cookout. Let's take it to a work level. I invite you to a meeting. Not that you have a lot of influence in my meeting, but just FYI to make sure you're up to speed on what we're doing. Then when you hold a meeting, you may invite me. So it's just really, making sure we're working on the same level. Taking responsibility. I almost have to laugh on this one, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Is you go into a meeting, there's 30 people in that room, a problem is brought up, and they said, who would like to take this? Dead silence. No one will stick their neck out. No one will say, it's just too risky. If I fail, everyone's going to know I failed. So instead of doing it, no one takes responsibility. So what if I take responsibility? What if I raise my hand and said, I've got some experience. I think I have the people or the manpower to do that. Therefore, I'll take it. Well, guess what? People around this table are going to look at you and go, oh, here's someone willing to take a chance. Here's someone that will, be the pioneer of the group. So, and that's part of your own personal branding, is that you're willing to take responsibility. I'll never forget, and the reason I bring up that story is I was at a meeting, and someone needed to take, project management responsibility for this fairly risky, task, and no one would take it. And finally, I got to be honest with you, I got upset. I got really upset. And finally, I just raised my hand and said, well, damn it, I'll take it. And by doing that, it's like, okay, well, Phil's got it now. And I had to work really hard at it. We made it a success. But all of a sudden now, people looked at me in a little bit different light. When a hard project came up, they asked me to attend the meeting. So all of a sudden, I had the reputation of being a positive person that would take responsibility and take ownership. Okay, benefit over features. There's so many times we're doing stuff. In fact, again, I'll pick on project management. We're doing a project and it has 5 features on it, and we do the 5 features that we rub our finger over our cell phone and we execute a app. Why are we doing it? What's the benefit of it? Is it to make us more competitive? Is it to bring in revenue? Why are we doing it? So I really encourage, especially in a lot of management classes I teach, is not, always question, why are we doing this? Go back to your manager. Why did you assign this to me? What's the benefit to the company? Because what I want to find out is, this goes along with the bottom one here, what's a mutual gain? Am I doing this just to make you more visible? Am I doing it for the betterment of my company and for my group and for the division I work in? Okay, so I really want to look at the benefits. Why are we doing this? Now, there's also some negative influence. Now, if you think about it, these are going to be areas that are negative. So when you walk into a meeting, let's say you're angry. You've had a bad night. Maybe you had a fight with your spouse, or one of your kids are sick and you really didn't want to come to work. Whatever that might be, you're carrying anger. And you walk into the meeting, and believe me, people can see it. No matter how hard you try to hide it, they see you're angry. All of a sudden, that's a negative. People aren't going to respond to you. There's not going to be a positive output of information because you're angry. The second one here, I had this one manager would love to manipulate people. Now, he wasn't very good at it, and you could see through it. He was very transparent. But he did it for his own good. Well, I'd like you to do this for the betterment of the group. And he was manipulating you, because if it failed, he's going to blame you. If it was a success, he would take credit and get promoted. Okay? Continued request, that person that keeps coming back to you. Can I have Friday off? Can I have Friday off? I really thought about it. I really need Friday off. After a while, that's going to really get to you. And you're going to be, get to the point where it's a negative influence to you. You're not going to do them. Personal appeal. Okay? That person that's in it just for them. Well, I know I needed Monday off to go to the dentist. Well, Tuesday I had a doctor's appointment. Wednesday I had to take off early because I got to go to Sally's recital. And there's a soccer game for Johnny on Friday. Now, over a period of time, you're going to build this up and go, why are they working? Why are they here if all their interest is at home or someplace else? So, that's going to become a very negative. Okay? Flattery. Some people have very false flattery. Boy, you look good today, Alice. And by the way, could you have this project done by Friday? You can see right through it. Group pressure. You may have a group of overachievers that's putting pressure on everyone else and becomes negative to those people that maybe aren't as senior. And those people that invoke sympathy constantly. I had this one guy working for me years ago, and he was the sympathy. Hi, Phil. And just the way he said it, I said, well, okay, I use Fred a lot. Fred, what's wrong? Well, my mother's sick, and I don't know what to do. She's out in Ohio, and and this happens time and time again. So everything here can show a lot of negative. And it's just the way we present things, the way our body language is, the way we influence others. Okay, now some influential communications techniques. Okay, now I got to tell you, stories and storytelling. Here we see a story is the only way to activate part of the brains so that the listener turns that story into their own ideas and experiences. Now, if you go way back in history, long before the written word, long before we had words, people were sharing pictures. Cavemen, before we had language, would draw upon the cave walls of a hunt, and that story would be shared with the group. Now, I am a storyteller, and always have been in my presentation style. Just about every slide I come up to, I have a story associated with it. Now, I remember last class I was telling a lot of stories. It was an Agile project management class I was teaching. And I finally stopped and said, guys, I'm telling an awful lot of stories. I hope you're not bored. And quite a few people came back to me in the chat box and said, we love your stories. It relates to what we're doing. So, stories, especially, can get a point across very easily and people can relate to it. So if you're not a storyteller, maybe bring a little bit of it in. Hey, I was working on a project Saturday and I run into this situation and here's the problem it caused. Maybe tell a little bit of a story rather than I run into a problem Saturday. Tell a story around it. It'll turn that listener, making them a little bit more adaptable to what you're talking about. Okay, storytelling. Knowing what influence you want to achieve. Knowing what your end goals are. If you're going to have a story that you walk in, you talk about, what you did when you were in the 5th grade, probably not going to relate to anything. So tell a story knowing what the end goal is. What's the vision I want to get across at the end? What is the outcome? I want a person looking and say, oh yeah, that's happened to me too. Okay, so knowing how you influence people, knowing what you want to achieve. Understand the needs and wants of your audience. Why are they there? You guys attended this seminar today on how to influence others. Now, if I'm telling stories that's not related to that, all of a sudden you're going, hey, where is Phil going with this? But hopefully all my stories will influence that. Okay, so knowing what the audience wants. Craft a great and purposeful story. How do we craft it? How do we do it? We practice it. Usually a good storyteller will practice it. They'll look at the beginning, the middle, the end. What's the goal? Who are my audiences? And they'll write it down and they'll just practice. One thing that I got to tell you is a little telling is practice in front of a mirror. Stand in front of a mirror and tell a story. Look at your facial expressions. Look at your body language. Look at your hands. Look at how many times you look at your notes. And practice till you get to the point where you can stand in front of a group and tell a story, and it's going to bring them into it. It's going to bring their interest up it, and they see a benefit from it at the end. Okay. Strategize on when, where, and how to deliver. Again, if I go in and my manager and I tell them a story that's totally unrelated to what we're doing, it's frankly going to turn me off, and you've wasted some of my time. But if you tell a story with a goal, and that goal matches my particular goals and needs, then it's going to work. So know when to tell stories and what to tell the stories about. Storytelling is a really strong, influential communications method. If you think about it, again, we go way back to the caveman days, back to Native Americans. There was always storytellers, always those people that had the tribal knowledge. And even in your group, you probably have good storytellers in your group that can tell, hey, I had this customer experience, and when they're done, you go, yeah, I can relate to that. They're just good storytellers. Okay, now the words and phrases we use. Okay, are they loaded? Are they unloaded? Okay, loaded words and phrases have strong emotional, applications. Okay, if we look at this, our daughter comes to us. I'll pick on my daughter, my oldest one. You want to go to the mall, don't you? Yeah, just the way she said it. Rather than saying, hey, Dad, can you give me a ride to the mall? Might be negative. Okay, but if she loads it up first and says, Dad, I think, you need a better shirt. Let's go to the mall. All of a sudden get to the mall where she goes her way, and I end up buying a shirt. But it's the way sometimes we load the questions up. Do you really want to associate with those people? Okay, kind of a loaded question. Okay, now some important research around influencing others. Okay, we look about the 6 principles. Now, the reciprocity, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. Asking someone to come into a meeting, asking their opinion, and you may not be great friends with them, but they're experts in maybe an area. So you sit down with them over lunch or at break and say, Fred, can you tell me about the new programming language we're using? Fred tells me all about it, and then Fred comes to me a week later and says, Phil, you're doing a different, new type of project management. Can you tell me about it? All of a sudden, we're influencing each other because I've reached out first and invited them to a meeting or invited them to give me their opinion on something. And they, in turn, will look at me and say, well, yeah, I would like Phil's opinion. We might develop a friendship. We might develop just a lot of respect for each other for our particular areas. Being very committed. I got to tell you, in a meeting, you can tell when someone's committed. You're sitting down, and Alice gets up, and Alice says, I'm working on this project, and here's why I need X amount of dollars, and so forth. Okay, so Alice gives me commitment, and with this commitment, sometimes I'll become passion, will become, influential to where I'm caught up in this excitement and in this commitment. Well, if Alice is committed to this, it must be something that's really worthwhile because I have respect for it. Okay. Social proof, safety in numbers. If the majority of people are thinking this way, or if you can convince the majority of people to go this way, chances are they'll go that way. So there'll be there's strength and security in social. Okay, liking the person is presenting, liking the concept of it, liking, is this the best thing we're doing for the company? It could be strictly authoritative. That person at the top says, the director comes in or C-level comes in, and because they're at that level, we have respect for them. They've gained certain notoriety at that level. Then we can get it. Okay. Now, I wanted to be talking about quite a few minutes here about something called emotional intelligence. Okay. Now, if you look about you as a person, I want each one of you to kind of self-reflect here. You have a lot of, skill set, where you're a programmer or a manager, project manager, business analyst, whatever that might be. You have good technical skills. That's why you're in this field. Okay? But each one of us also have emotional intelligence. Now, this is, in fact, in today's society, when you go out looking for a job, a lot of time, more and more companies are looking for good, solid emotional intelligence. How do you work well with others? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do you influence people? Okay. Now, there are 4 basic steps in determining emotional intelligence. Okay. First of all is being emotionally self-aware. Now, I'm going to pick on myself. I'm going to tell you more about myself than you probably want to know, but I'll tell you anyway. Self-aware. I'm not a patient person. Now, I think when I was in the Navy, right out of high school, I waited in so many lines and waited, seemed like forever, that really influenced me to where I don't like lines. So when we go to the movies, if there's a choice between one movie that has a real long line and a movie that has a short line, I'll probably choose a shorter line because I don't like long lines. I have to laugh because my wife and I like to go out to eat, and we'll go to a restaurant and we'll say, what's the wait time? They'll say an hour. Oh, too long. We'll get in the car and drive an hour to another restaurant, for one that has a shorter wait time, only because, again, I know that I'm self-aware. I'm not a patient person. I don't like to wait in lines. Okay. Now, we go to the bottom there, self-manage. Now that I know this about myself, how do I manage that? Well, I manage it because I don't go to the most, popular movie on the night it opens. I'll wait a week later when most of the crowds are gone. I know when the latest Star Wars came out, my wife and I wanted to see it, and we didn't go opening night or even opening weekend. We waited till about a week and a half later, and then we went. No lines, got right in. So even though I wanted to see it opening night, I knew that I would be, have a little angst associated with it. So let's say you're an angry person. It's just, when you're road rage, you get angry very quickly, So you stay out of those situations that's going to make you angry. So that's being self-managed, really knowing that, what attributes do I have that I need to steer away from, okay? Now, socially aware. If I'm put in a social environment, let's say, let me pick on a different take here. Let's say I'm a manager, and I know I'm a real bottom line, A-type, don't care about people's personal problems manager. And I'm sure we've had managers like that. So when I get in a situation where people come to me with personal problems, hey, my mother is elderly, I need to take the week off and get her in a nursing home. I might not care. It's just I know that through my self-awareness and my self-manage, socially, I don't care about people's problems. Seeing a puppy on TV doesn't do anything for me, but seeing the bottom line of the economy, that excites me. Okay, so knowing, and again, I'll pick on myself here, I have no problem getting up as a keynote speaker in front of 1,000 people. No problem at all. Done it, done it for years. But if I walk into a room where I know no one, where I don't have a purpose or a job, I'll be the first one to go to the corner, sip on my drink, and wait for someone to introduce themselves. It sounds kind of weird, but that's my social awareness. Okay. Now, when I get to the various high-level relationship managers, okay, knowing that I'm a person that doesn't, is not a patient person, I try to stay in a situation where I have to wait a lot. I know that I'm kind of a wallflower when put in situations where I don't have a job. Okay. Knowing that, I can manage my relationships better with my managers. So let me take the reverse of this. Let's say I'm working with a guy named Max. I know Max is my manager. He's a director. I'm a manager. Max is not a social person. Max is a bottom line person. Max doesn't like anyone to waste his time. He doesn't like impromptu walk into my office. He likes things that are set up in formal meetings. So knowing this, if I want to get something out of Max, I want another $100,000 for a project, I don't walk into Max's office and say, hey, good morning. Let me tell you about my weekend. Let me tell you about the new puppy we got, and tell him all that. And then say, well, by the way, Max, I'd like another $100,000. Max is already turned off. Max is already done with me. Okay. So knowing that relationship I have with Max, that this is the kind of person Max is, then when I walk in, I make a formal request for a meeting. I show up on time. I have all documentation that I need to show Max of why I need the extra $100,000. So I know that for me to strengthen this relationship between us, I can't waste his time. Even though I might be a social person, I want to talk about the weekend and my new puppy, Max doesn't. So I want to get to the bottom line as quick as I can with Max, ask him for the money. Now, if he turns around and says, "Oh, that was a good presentation. How's the family doing?" Then I know I can open up a little bit. But it might be, boom, you got what you want out of my office. Okay. So this EQ model, or EI, for emotional intelligence is today very, very important. I used to tell people all the time, don't give me 10 of the smartest people in my company. Give me 10 people that will willing to work together, and I'll make them superstars. Because I want a team that works well as a team. I want a team that respects each other, that influences other. I want a manager that come in that I can trust. Okay, that's all part of this emotional intelligence. And today's environment, that's extremely, extremely important. Okay, guys, that's the end of my formal presentation. I want to do a little plug on a couple here and then turn it back to Rocco. In October 16th, we have a seminar on getting your projects funded. Very, very important, especially if your company has $1 million to spend and you're bidding for part of that money for a project. This may help you get that project approved. Leadership. Steve Jobs, if you look at him, he was not a very good leader, as far as a manager goes, direct day-to-day manager. But as a leader, he influenced our industry, beyond what we can talk about. So here's a whole one-day seminar on Steve Jobs and the way he influenced people. Okay. We also at Manager Mechanics have something called IT Lamp, which is a monthly live virtual classes, virtual community for IT managers. Now, this is one I'm teaching next week, which is the IT MLP, or IT Management and Leadership Professionals. It's a 3-day class, 8 hours a day, and we cover everything from cloud computing to funding the IT thing, difficult the employees working with, managing virtual teams, solving problems, workforce and salary planning. So these are walk away from this with a lot of nuggets, things you don't learn in an MBA program, things you learn only from experience. Now, again, I've got about over 40 years in the industry. Eric has about the same. We put together these classes on things that they just don't teach you, things that as an IT person, you need to know. And when you're done, you can take a certification test and become a certified professional. Have this IT MLP after your name. So with that, Rocco, I'm going to turn it back over to you and answer any question people might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Phil. I especially enjoyed this topic, and something especially stood out to me was the idea of using storytelling as a tool of influence, and I just thought it was really good information all around, so I want to thank you for presenting today. We do have a couple questions, and which is good because we do have 5 minutes left within the hour. Before I get to those, I just wanted to quickly mention to all our attendees that this webinar was recorded, and it will be emailed to all attendees later this afternoon, a link to the recording, which sits on our YouTube channel. And if I can't get to everyone's question, anytime throughout the day, you can simply send an email to info@nhls.com, and I could respond that way. But quickly, Phil, there is one question that I thought was a good one. So it's how do you become an influencer in the workplace without coming across as, quote, a bully?
Oh, boy, what a great question. I think what you have to look at is ask people. I usually use the word ASK a lot. Rather than tell people what to do, and again, this could come across as a bully, even if you're the expert. Let's say that you're a team lead and you have a lot of knowledge. Sometimes imparting that knowledge can come across as bullying or egotistical. Sometimes you want to say, what would you like to know? How can I help you? So a lot of times just asking what the person wants on the other end, or asking Would they like to be a part of this project? So what we want to do is not make it a one-way conversation, because that does come across as bullying. We want to make sure it's a two-way conversation, that I ask people their opinions. And again, I got to tell you, I made this mistake earlier in my career where I started as an engineer, and I got pretty good at it, and I think I probably overstepped my boundaries quite a bit and would tell people because I had all this knowledge. So I think what we have to do, Rocco, and hopefully I'm answering their question, is make sure it's a two-way conversation. I bring them in as an equal partner and then share my knowledge. And I think by having more of a pulled system versus a push system, this will allow me to bring them in and not come across as a bully. Did I answer your question okay?
I believe you answered that perfectly well. Thank you. One more, and it's kind of a general, but it says, do you have any additional advice for managers that are trying to influence remote employees, people that work off site?
Oh my God, that's a toughie. We could spend all day on that one. Managing virtual teams or managing teams that don't report to you directly are all part of the same coin. And I think what we have to do is make sure those people feel valued. When you're a remote employee, you can feel isolated. You can feel like no one's listening to you. You're not part of home office. You're not part of the decision making. So as a manager, make sure you include them a little bit more often. Call them once a week. Email them once a week. Just say, how things going? It may not even be project or task related. Ask how they're doing. So what you want to do is work a little bit harder, because if you think about it, if I'm working with someone that's right next to me in the next cube, I see him every day. I have lunch with them. We know each other. We hear each other constantly. Someone out in Minnesota, I may not have that. So make sure as a manager I put a little extra effort when reach out to Martha in Minnesota to say, Martha, how you doing? If you hear a rumor, call Martha up right away and say, Martha, you may hear this. Here's what it's all about. So put a little extra effort in communications to make sure they feel more of a part of the team. Because virtual teams, where it be one person or a team of people, can feel very isolated very quickly. So reach out to them, make sure there's two-way communications, and you may have to put a little bit more extra effort into those people that are remote versus those people that are local.
Great, thank you. Good advice. And I believe a few months ago we did actually hold an entire webinar based around that topic of managing virtual teams, but that's a good quick response. So thank you, Phil. So we're out of time. Again, thank you so much, Phil, for your great presentation, and thank you to everyone for attending. And have a great rest of the day, and look out for the recording that will be sent via email shortly this afternoon.
Thanks, Rocco, and thanks for everyone to attend.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.